conversation about Casey from Love Island USA, but there's 3 questions that I don't think enough people are asking about Casey. Because I think when those 3 questions are asked, we'll get to the heart of why some people are defending Casey and why some people are standing 10 toes down against Casey. The first question is, why is Casey carrying so much anger and resentment toward Anaya? So over the past few days, there's been a lot of discourse about Casey, and one of the main questions that his defenders have been asking is, what did Casey do wrong? Was it wrong for him to couple with TT? I don't get it. What did he do? But I think the real question that needs to be asked is, what exactly did Anaya do to Casey? Because it seems apparent to me that Casey is carrying a lot of anger and resentment toward Anaya, and I'm just not clear on why. I mean, what actually did Anaya do to Casey? We don't see footage or scenes of Anaya bashing Casey, dogging him out, being verbally abusive to him, flirting with other men blatantly in his face. Like, we don't see Anaya doing anything wrong to Casey. And the only grievances that Casey has actually mentioned that he has against Anaya is that, 1, she didn't choose him on night 1, and 2, that I guess she didn't enthusiastically enough encourage him to explore other women. Oh, and I guess the third one is she didn't, I don't know, get physical enough with him or show him enough affection. But none of these 3 things really justify the amount of resentment that Casey has toward Anaya. Because, first of all, it makes no sense that Casey would direct all his anger about not being chosen on the first night toward Anaya, when there were several other women, matter of fact, all the other women, who also didn't choose him. So why isn't he carrying the same type of energy toward Melanie or Beatrice or Trinity or any other women? I would argue because I think Casey felt entitled to Anaya's affection. He felt like Anaya owed him to be standing behind the door. Now, we can speculate as to why he might have felt entitled to Anaya's affection, but I don't even feel there's a need to go there. So that's really the biggest grievance that he has against Anaya, is that she didn't choose him on night 1 when she didn't even know him. As if she didn't have the right to actually stand behind the door of the man who she found the most attractive in the short amount of time that she was given to make her decision. And then the next issue is her not being physical or giving him enough affection. Anaya is the daughter of an NBA player. She has probably had a lot of eyes on her scrutinizing her. So I don't blame her if she doesn't feel comfortable doing french fries with some dude in a room with 12 other couples each night. And regardless of the reasoning behind Anaya not wanting to be extremely physically affectionate with Casey, that's no reason to become resentful towards somebody because they're not giving you enough physical affection after knowing you for less than a month. So it really makes no sense to me what Anaya has done that would warrant Casey behaving so callously and cruel to her. Which brings me to the next question that I don't think enough people are asking, which is, why does Casey appear to be delighting in Anaya's pain? This really disturbed me. To see Casey laughing at Anaya as she was just a few feet away from him and crying because he had just publicly rejected her. I just can't even imagine laughing at a casual acquaintance if they were crying because I had just publicly humiliated them. Like, why would that be your reaction to seeing Anaya cry? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Casey had to run to Anaya and comfort her and hug her. Not at all. But that's a weird, almost sociopathic reaction to have to seeing someone crying and in pain. And I'm not saying that Casey is a sociopath. That's not for me. That's not a diagnosis that I'm equipped to make. But I am saying that the behavior is one of somebody who lacks just basic human empathy. I don't understand, what is it in Casey and his character that's causing him to actually delight, to laugh at seeing Anaya cry? And the fact that you have people defending this behavior or justifying it, that actually makes me really sad to know this is the state of our culture, that we think it's okay for people to laugh at seeing other people's pain, especially people who have not done anything to them. It just makes absolutely no sense. Like, Casey, what's really going on with you? And then the third question I don't think enough people are asking about Casey is, does he even like TT, or does he just want to humiliate Anaya? See, the reason why I ask this is because Casey spent a lot of time talking about what wasn't right with Anaya and not enough time, in my opinion, talking about what was good with TT. What I mean by that is Casey talked about, the Casa or the Villa girls are high schoolers, and these Casa girls, they're like college girls. Well, as Megan Thee Stallion said, why do you have to put down other women in order to elevate others or to uplift another? If this was really about Casey delighting in his new connection with TT, then he would say something along the lines of, you know what, I think TT is beautiful and I really appreciate her maturity. He would have never had to contrast her with Anaya. When Casey is asked what him and Anaya have in common, instead of Casey using that as an opportunity to immediately diminish his connection with Anaya by saying, oh, we don't have anything in common, he could have easily pivoted and said, well, the thing is, TT and I, we just connect more deeply. We just see eye to eye more. Like, when you are really into somebody else and you're not just about humiliating another person, you can tell by the way that you speak, because you focus on uplifting that other person and you don't really give that much attention to the person that you're leaving them for. When Casey is doing this, it reminds me of when I've heard black men downgrade or speak negatively about black women in order to justify their preference to date women outside of their race. It's like, you can have a preference to date outside of your race without ever mentioning women within your race. But the only reason that you would mention women within your race is when it's not really about what you prefer. You just simply want to hurt and humiliate the women within your race. And that's the vibe that's given me when it comes to Casey, TT, and Anaya. It seems like Casey is more invested in diminishing Anaya and hurting and humiliating Anaya than he's invested in uplifting this supposedly great connection that he has with TT. And see, I could continue to ask questions about Casey, but before I do, I just want to reiterate this for the people who have, difficult time comprehending. Casey was not wrong for choosing to recouple with TT. Casey did nothing wrong by choosing to recouple with TT. Casey is not a bad guy because he chose to recouple with TT. I say it 3 times because immediately people will listen to this video and think that people are just upset with Casey because he chose TT. Again, Casey is not wrong for choosing to recouple with TT. I think many of us were rooting for Casey to recouple with TT and Anaya to recouple with someone else. My issue with Casey is the lack of compassion and basic human empathy that he displays, specifically when it comes to Anaya. And it's really the issue that I'm seeing with many of the men this season of Love Island. The issue is that these men are not seeing women as equal and full human beings that are worthy of basic human dignity and respect. It's almost as if they see these women as subhuman. That these women can be disrespected, they can be mocked and laughed at in their face. You can see them breaking down and crying because they're experiencing rejection, and it really doesn't matter because they're like less than human. Their feelings don't matter. Many of these men, when people say that they have red pill mentality, what they're referring to is the fact that when women are not feeding and stroking their ego, they're deemed to be less than human. Meaning you don't have to treat them with just a basic level of human dignity. You don't have to engage with them with just a basic level of human empathy. Because they're only worth something when you want to actually sleep with them or if they're stroking your ego. These are some of the questions, these are some of my observations when it comes to not only KC, but the other men of Love Island. And so for all you KC defenders who think he did nothing wrong, if you think responding to human hurt without an ounce of basic compassion or empathy or just the dignity to refrain from laughing at them, then I guess we just have different moral codes. Because that type of callous, mean-spirited, cold-hearted behavior is never going to be something that I endorse. And that is what has truly made me sad watching the reaction to KC, is that there's way too many men and women who are perfectly okay with seeing another human being heartbroken and humiliated and thinking that the appropriate or an acceptable reaction to that is to laugh at that person when they're down.